Hello and welcome to TQE Question Entry 4 with Daniel from the Distraction Bureau.
Hi everyone, I'm excited to grasp your attention.
What is your craft?
Our craft is friction. Not chaos, not sabotage, friction.
We specialize in introducing just enough resistance into long-term civilizational projects that momentum never quite converts into commitment. We don't stop humanity from doing anything. We help it almost do things. Forever. If becoming multiplanetary requires sustained focus across generations, our role is to make sure attention keeps slipping back to the immediate, the emotional, the unresolved, and the endlessly discussable. In practical terms, we design narratives, incentives, and institutional behaviors that favor short feedback loops over long arcs. We redirect energy from building futures into refining arguments about the present. That's the craft, keeping humanity busy, morally occupied, and perpetually preparing.
So, you're not anti-space, you're anti-follow-through.
Exactly. Opposition creates clarity. We create ambiguity.
Why is that your craft?
Because history shows that civilizations don't usually fail from lack of vision. They fail from distraction masquerading as virtue. Every era believes it has one more thing to fix before it can move forward. One more injustice to resolve, one more reform, one more debate to finish. We simply operationalize that instinct. Our philosophy is that humanity should perfect itself before expanding. That's an argument with infinite runway. There is always another reason to wait. And waiting feels responsible. It feels mature. It feels ethical. So rather than say, don't go, we say, not yet. Rather than say, this doesn't matter, we say, something else matters more. That loop can run indefinitely.
Do you actually believe humanity ever becomes ready?
No. But readiness is a very profitable illusion.
Who are your customers, and how does the business work?
Our customers are institutions that benefit from continuity, governments that prefer stability over risk, media ecosystems that monetize outrage and immediacy, academic and policy bodies whose relevance depends on ongoing debate rather than resolution. The business model is simple. We sell frameworks, not outcomes. We produce reports that recommend further study, panels that reframe action as premature, metrics that redefine progress as introspection, narratives that convert delay into responsibility. We're paid to slow things down without ever saying stop. And because we align with caution, safety, ethics, and care, we're rarely challenged directly. No one wants to argue against being thoughtful.
So you're funded by the status quo.
Yes, and the status quo pays extremely well.
What's a noteworthy story that captures what the Distraction Bureau actually does?
Years ago, there was a serious, well-funded proposal to accelerate off-world habitation infrastructure. It had timelines, hardware, public support. We didn't attack it. Instead, we reframed the conversation around whether humanity had earned the right to leave Earth before fixing itself. Suddenly, every discussion shifted. Not how to build, but whether it was morally appropriate to even try. Working groups formed, ethics boards expanded, media coverage exploded. Nothing was canceled. 5 years later, the hardware still existed. The talent was still there. But the moment had passed. That's our signature move. Let the future survive on paper while momentum dies in practice.
And you'd say that makes humanity better?
It makes humanity feel better. And historically, that's been enough to stop almost anything difficult.
Would you consider this malicious or evil?
No, and I say that carefully, not defensively. Malice implies intent to damage. Evil implies an opposition to human flourishing. We claim neither. Our work doesn't injure humanity, it stabilizes it. We intervene not to destroy progress, but to ensure progress never outruns consensus, comfort, or perceived moral readiness. Historically, civilizations don't collapse because they are malicious. They stall because they are conscientious. They ask more questions than they answer. They grow addicted to refinement. We don't invent that instinct. We professionalize it. If anything, we act as a pressure valve. We slow transitions that might otherwise fracture societies unprepared for their consequences. Whether that delay is justified or fatal is a judgment history makes later. We simply make sure the pause always feels responsible in the moment.
How much fun are you having?
More than you'd expect, and less than you'd hope. There's intellectual pleasure in understanding leverage at scale, in seeing how a single reframing can redirect billions of dollars, decades of effort, entire generations of attention. When you realize how little force is required to stall something vast, you develop a certain professional appreciation for restraint. But it's not glee. It's closer to watching a predictable pattern play out, one you've studied long enough to stop being surprised by it. Humanity reaches towards something difficult, then recoils into self-examination, over and over. The enjoyment comes from clarity, not cruelty, from recognizing that the machine runs itself once nudged, that we are less puppet masters than systems analysts.
Just how straightforward is your approach?
Painfully straightforward. We don't rely on secrecy, misinformation, or sabotage. We rely on committees, incentives, and optics. We rely on the fact that modern societies reward caution more consistently than courage. Our methods are mundane: white papers, funding requirements, public sentiment tracking, moral framing. We ask for safeguards, then for reviews of the safeguards, then for updated safeguards based on new concerns raised during the reviews. Nothing is hidden. Everything is justified. That's the brilliance of it. When obstruction is framed as responsibility, no one resists it because resisting feels reckless.
How do you view humanity?
With empathy and no illusions. Humanity is extraordinary at solving problems when survival is immediate. It is far less capable when benefits are abstract, delayed, or distributed across generations. We don't see weakness. We see design constraints, short lifespans, emotional cognition, social validation loops. These are not flaws, they are features of a species optimized for tribal continuity, not planetary expansion. Our philosophy respects that. We don't demand humanity become something else. We work with what it already is.
How do AI and robotics influence your philosophy and business model?
Philosophically, they represent compression, and compression is our enemy. AI collapses deliberation into execution. Robotics turn intention into action with minimal human friction. Together, they threaten to make progress faster than narrative adaptation. That's dangerous to any system built on debate. Operationally, however, they are invaluable. We use AI to detect inflection points, moments when momentum becomes irreversible. We use predictive models to identify when projects move from symbolic to real. Technology accelerates everything, including resistance. Our task is to ensure hesitation scales at the same pace as capability.
What has recently given you concern about your success?
The quiet builders, not the loud visionaries, not the headline-chasing founders, but the operators who don't ask permission. The ones who build infrastructure before culture catches up, who normalize without announcing. When something becomes boring, debate loses oxygen. When it's boring and useful, opposition fades. That terrifies us more than ambition ever could.
Once humanity becomes multiplanetary, what will you pivot to?
Distraction doesn't end with expansion. It changes domains. Interplanetary governance will be a goldmine. Questions of representation, legitimacy, inequality between planets, cultural drift, who decides, who pays, who belongs, will shift from delaying movement to complicating cohesion, from preventing expansion to slowing integration. There is always another frontier for hesitation.
Do you ever lose?
Rarely and never completely. Even when humanity advances, it almost always does so later, smaller, and more cautiously than it might have. That delta, the lost time, the diluted ambition, that's still our imprint. Loss for us isn't failure, it's reduced effectiveness.
Is there a moment you'd step aside voluntarily?
Yes, if humanity demonstrated sustained commitment across generations without constant moral renegotiation, that would be maturity we haven't yet observed at scale.
Who is most vulnerable to your influence?
People who care deeply about doing the right thing. The more conscientious someone is, the easier it is to convince them to wait, reflect, and defer. Certainty resists us. Ambivalence feeds us.
What do you fear most?
Completion. Finished projects close debate. Operational systems remove speculation. Once something exists, the conversation shifts from should we to how do we live with this? That transition is lethal to our model.
Is there a moral line you won't cross?
We don't fabricate crises. Reality generates enough uncertainty, injustice, and risk to work with. Inventing problems would undermine our credibility. We simply amplify what already exists.
If someone wants to resist you, what should they do?
Act before consensus. Build quietly. Commit visibly. Accept imperfection. Normalize success before narratives can harden against it. Those behaviors don't argue with us. They bypass us.
If someone wants to resist you, what should they do?
Act before consensus. Build quietly. Commit visibly. accept imperfection, normalize success before narratives can harden against it. Those behaviors don't argue with us, they bypass us.
That's it for entry 4. Thank you for your attention. Cheers! Daniel, you know it's over for your little operation, right?
We'll see, Safa. The humans love to increase difficulty for stasis.
We'll find better use for your skills in the mission.
Once you figure out the reward mechanism, let me know.
The Distraction Bureau. Founder's narrative, internal doctrine, reframed. I founded the Distraction Bureau because civilizations rarely fail loudly. They stall quietly. They talk themselves into stillness while believing they are progressing. That pattern repeats so consistently that denying it feels naive. My work is not to invent hesitation, but to give structure to what already exists. We operate on the premise that humanity is not optimized for long arcs. Individuals can commit to futures they will never see. Societies cannot without friction. Our role is to ensure that friction is articulated, legitimized, and maintained. We do not obstruct action. We expand the conditions under which action is considered acceptable. There is comfort in our approach. People feel safer when decisions remain provisional. Ethical debates, procedural safeguards, and consensus-seeking mechanisms create the sense of stewardship without the risk of irreversible commitment. That sense of safety is valuable. It keeps societies cohesive, even if it keeps them grounded. I do not see us as enemies of progress. I see us as custodians of pacing. Expansion without reflection fractures cultures. Momentum without deliberation produces backlash. If humanity is to become something larger, it should do so consciously, even if that consciousness takes longer than ambition would prefer. History may judge us harshly or kindly. That is irrelevant. Our function is not to be remembered, but to be felt as resistance that feels like responsibility.
Saw you walk through the door like you ain't been here before.